Don't be ashamed to learn things that you need to know. Here's Sexplanations with Dr. Doe.
Sexplanations podcast, episode 8. I'm Lindsay Doe, a clinical sexologist and doctor of human sexuality. This is a show where I talk with interesting people about sexual things. Today, the interesting person is Matthew Gaydos. Yay!
Hi.
Hi, you're the other half of Sexplanations YouTube channel. You do the videography, editing, and directing of our show, in addition to two other channels. Channels.
That's a good slip. It will become abundantly clear why that's a good slip in the next few seconds.
Animal Wonders Montana and The Financial Diet.
Yes. My technical title is producer.
You're the producer.
It encompasses all the
All
other
those
stuff
things.
you listed.
All those things.
Yeah, but I'm the producer of those 3 channels here at Complexly.
A fact about you, Matthew was featured on Sexplanations a few times before he left his job managing the DFTBA warehouse to work with us on the production side.
A couple times?
Yeah.
I can think of at least once.
The first one, I think, was our 100th anniversary episode where we acted
100th
out.
episode, not 100th anniversary. But yes, the 100th episode,
wow.
the blowjobs in the dungeon, that was my first appearance.
Yes, in the green suit. And then you wore the green suit again in an episode called Gratitude.
Oh, right. Or we were thanking Patreon people.
Yes, we did a
That's
family
right.
portrait.
We did a family portrait and one more pose.
Yeah. Something
The
cable.
chandelier?
Yeah, chandelier, the Italian chandelier.
That was right, yeah.
Yes.
I was on the channel twice before I got the job, and I think twice since I got the job.
Oh, yeah, because you did the end of the year chat.
And then the other end of the year chat.
2 end of the year chats.
Yeah.
One with Nick and then one you and I.
Correct.
Okay.
So
you
you've
and
seen my face if you've seen the channel, if you've watched every video. And then if you've seen the other videos, you've seen the green outline of my body.
And if you go to youtube.com/Matthew Gaydos, you can see much more of your face. You can hear your
exclusively
voice
my face.
singing and your hands playing guitar.
Go watch my hands.
Oh, okay. So let's look at this. In 2 years, we've been making videos together, more than that, and answering sex questions like what sex positions are possible for oral sex in a dungeon? My question for you is how would you respond to this? My curiosity is how would Matthew respond to this?
Respond to that question?
Respond to all these questions that we've gotten over the years. So my plan is to look at the episode of Sexplanations YouTube channel called Rapid Delivery and the one right after that, which is a follow-up set of questions, and ask you those questions.
Okay.
Yeah?
I mean, we can try it. I'm not the doctor here.
No, I know, but when we're on set and we're in between lines, you always have really insightful sex-positive things to say. And you're hilarious.
Well, thanks. That's it, folks. Wrap it up with that.
Oh, I love
It's
it.
all downhill from here.
First, though, before we go into that, each week on Sexplanations podcast, we do a multiple choice testy question in honor of the Sexplanauts who fund this channel at patreon.com/Sexplanations podcast. A special thanks goes out to Laura Schuster, Paul Nixon, Donna Flint, and the Millers who pledge at the boss level.
Now it's time to hold our testes.
Here's our question. Approximately how many unanswered messages do I have between my Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook inboxes?
All right.
A, 6, as in I'm very great at managing and
I'm
replying.
going to guess not that one.
B, 600. C, 6,000. Or D, 60,000.
I really thought 69 was going to be an option.
Aww.
Not to cast doubt on you, but I'm going to say C.
Yeah.
6,000?
Yeah. You got it.
That's so many messages, Lindsay.
Oh my gosh. There are so many more than that because I will occasionally shut Facebook Ask and Tumblr Ask off so that people can't write in because I can't afford any more buildup. It's just, there are so many.
How old do you think the oldest question in there is? That's hopefully not urgent.
Maybe 3 years. Because there was that year time period where I was like, I'm going to answer all of these. And then for a while, I had a personal assistant helping me answer them. And then I would have a volunteer helping me answer them. Or at one point, what we did was I shot a video on my iPhone and edited it on iMovie for doe eyes. That's basically like, thank you for asking your question. If it's related to this, go here. If it's related to this, here's some websites. And if it's this, then you should schedule an appointment with a clinical sexologist, and here's how to do that. Yeah. And so we would just send those out. But then it just got much, 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 much more full, the inbox. And
because that's the problem is like the more you answer questions on the internet, the more people realize that you you will answer questions on the internet, and then they're just going to keep asking, which is great because they're reaching out for help, but it also consumes a lot of your time.
Well, it would have, right?
If
because
you kept
now
answering.
I can't manage it in that way. And I also get really overwhelmed by people sending messages that are really lengthy about how they had sex and they want to know their risk of having a sexually transmitted infection from it, or risk of pregnancy, or whether or not they were raped. And that's heavy stuff.
Yeah, I've noticed when we've done Q&As at like NerdCon and VidCon and stuff, the one thing that tends to happen is when people stand up to ask questions, they usually have a pretty lengthy story to tell before they actually get to their core question. And it's one of those things of like, it's very nice to hear, and it's nice that people like care about the channel enough to talk about those things. But it is that thing of like, I can see that when you have 1,000 of those in a row that you're reading through, it gets very heavy. And it's like if you watched just sad movies all the time and never watched a comedy and never watched anything else, and you're just like, why am I not feeling great? Yeah. It's like, oh, well, maybe because you just read 1,000 upsetting messages.
Right.
So I can see why like you wouldn't want to just dive in every day
why
and
there's
tackle
6,000 messages in my inbox.
I mean, I thought I was bad with there was a while back in my email inbox, I did something where it marked years and years of emails as unread. I don't know what I did. I don't know how I did it. But essentially, my email inbox said I had 4,000 unread emails. And I would say 95% of those were over 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And so they were not things I needed to read. They were not things that I needed to not delete. Mm-hmm. And yet I sat there with them on my phone for years, just not doing anything about them and just letting that number, I would just, essentially it would hit 4,000 and I would delete a few and keep it below 4,000. But anyone who looks at my phone sees that little bubble or giant bubble and is like, what is wrong with you? You're a monster. Because I know there's people like listening to this who are freaking out about it. Like there are a lot of people out there who can't have any red bubbles on their screen at any time, like no alerts.
Yeah, you did an episode of that on
my old show, Matt and Maddie, where we talked about that. And it is now a little bit more under control. I have not yet gone through all of those old ones, but I am down to like 1,700. Oh. From the original like 4,000. So.
Must feel so good.
That's the thing. It doesn't really bother me at all.
Oh.
The 4,000 didn't bother me. The 1,700 doesn't bother me. It bothers anyone who ever looks at my phone. So I'm doing it more as a courtesy to anyone who ever glances at my phone and goes, ah. Because if it says like 56, people are like, that's still a lot like for your inbox, but it's not 4,000.
Yeah.
But so 6,000 is like just Facebook and Tumblr. Mm-hmm. Oh man.
Well, Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter, which, you know, in terms of direct message on Twitter, that's like a handful. It doesn't include YouTube messages from the comments or from...
Are those still a thing?
They are still a thing. It doesn't include any of my email inboxes. So, yeah, I mean, we're probably looking at tens of thousands, but I'm going to hold the number at 6,000 approximately.
Jeez.
Okay, are you ready for questions?
So we're going to do all 6,000 right now. No. This is going to be a 12-hour podcast.
These are just drawn from the rapid delivery episode of Sexplanations. So if you go to youtube.com/sexplanations, type in rapid delivery, you'll see how I responded to them. But this is how Matthew Gaydos tries.
That's a yes.
Okay, we'll do some of these. And then we'll just see how it goes. If we decide to have a long conversation about one of them in particular and not do quantity, I don't mind quality.
Yeah, that's probably a good...
Let's have both.
Yeah. I don't mind quality. It's all right.
Okay. What does sexually active mean?
I feel like this is one that I think about only if I'm going to a doctor and they ask it.
Yeah.
Because that's the only time anyone has ever brought up the
Are
term
you sexually
active. And you just say yes if you've had sex recently.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, as like heterosexual, like cis guy,
Mm-hmm.
like for me, I'm just like, have I had sexual intercourse lately? Yes, that is the answer.
As in, put a penis in a vagina, put
Correct.
a penis in an anus, put a penis in a mouth.
Yeah, I don't even. Yeah, see, that's the thing. It's like where oral sex comes in, is where I think if I was going to a doctor to get tested for like STIs and stuff, I would include oral sex as sexually active because obviously that can contribute to that. But if you show up there and you're like, nope, I haven't been sexually active, even if it's just been oral, that's not going to help their
Right,
process.
Well, and for some people, that is their primary form of sexual expression and behavior.
Right, because it's kind
oral
of that
contact.
whole high school mentality of everything but. Like,
Oh, you're saying you have the high school mentality?
no. I'm saying that's the same mentality of people who will respond that they're not sexually active, even if they're participating in oral sex, because for them it's not sex, even though it's like right there in the title.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think that it's important for us to, if we don't come to an agreed set of meanings for sexually active, then I think whoever is asking the question needs to be more specific about what they're looking for in an answer or what they need to know. Because, right, some people
Yeah.
don't ever have penetrative sex.
I think it's also that question that I think I've seen, at least from the questions we've handled on the channel, a lot of people seem comfortable asking you, like anonymously on the internet, but they don't necessarily feel comfortable asking their doctor in person for some
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
Which I understand, like talking to someone in person about personal things is a lot harder than just typing on your keyboard. But that is a thing that you could easily ask the doctor who says, are you sexually active? And you say, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that question. Ask like more details. And so like if the doctor said like, oh, have you basically what you ran down, like penis and vagina, penis and anus, like anything like that. And they mention oral and the person can then go, oh, yes, I guess I am.
Yeah.
And it's just that follow-up question sometimes. Like I am a person who questions everything. Like it's a healthy skepticism in my mind, but it leads to some people getting upset or frustrated because I will just ask 1,000 questions until I understand why something is being done or why it's being done in a certain way. And that in the past has gotten me in trouble with like bosses and people around me. And I think it extends to doctor's appointments and things too, where if a doctor asks me a question or says they're going to do something, I want to know why. I'm not just going to take it at like blind faith of, yeah, sure, go ahead. Like,
Do whatever to my anus.
yeah, go for it.
No, that's really great. And I love that you're giving permission to people to get more information, to stay curious. Ready for
Yeah.
the next question?
Sure.
Who do you have sex with?
My girlfriend.
Is there something people do in their sex lives that they think is good, but you think is dysfunctional?
I think if you had asked me that question before I started working on Sexplanations, I probably would have had a list. I think, but over the last 2 years of working with you and just making more friends through the internet and learning more, I think there is no list initially in my head of things that I'm like, well, yeah, everything's cool except that thing. And it's like,
Aw.
obviously there are things out there that are harmful to other people or illegal and certain
Yeah.
things like that that I don't agree with. But on the whole, if it's like a fetish or a kink or just a thing you like to do on the weekends, like I'm not gonna shame someone for that. And I think in the past I would have definitely been someone who would have turned their head at somebody saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to a dominatrix or something like that.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, oh, okay, whatever, and just kind of looked down on something like that. But over the past 2 years of like working with you and just, I think it's the mixture of working with you and that forcing me to learn more outside of even work and meeting and talking to people who go through more things in life and learning from their experiences. Like I said, as a white, straight, cis guy, like
Yeah.
my experience is very limited. and I don't know these things until I ask or until I talk to someone about them. And so I think as I've gone through these past 2 years, I'm definitely much more open-minded, non-judgmental.
Oh, that's so cool. They
Yeah.
can't see, but I have a shit-eating grin. Okay, so how do I get my sex drive back?
I'd say there's probably some Sexplanations episodes about that. That sounds like more of a doctor question than a producer question.
My response then was have sex.
Yes, and then I've heard you give that advice, which is very interesting advice, because I have friends who have gotten that advice from therapists, and it makes them very unhappy.
I could understand that.
I've had friends who are like asexual, borderline asexual, who have maybe had a trauma in their life or something that leads to them not really wanting to have sex. Like even a back rub can be like triggering for them because they think it's going to lead to sex.
Yeah.
Or a romantic dinner, things like that. And I think for them, they've had people tell them, oh yeah, well, if you have sex with that partner who you know loves you, you'll get used to it or something. And at least for the friends I've talked to, that's very hard to do and very hard to come to terms with because it feels like putting yourself into a super uncomfortable position for essentially what is the needs of the partner.
Totally. Well, and I also think that if you're going to have sex to spark a sex drive, that has to be good reinforcing sex. But I think that what your friends are experiencing is maybe different than what I hear from clients, which is, hey, I've had a baby or something has changed in my life. Like I exercise more or I work more and I'm just tired and I need to get that old sex drive back.
Right.
Whereas what I'm hearing is this person is asexual. So for them, it's not about maybe changing who they are, but it's accepting and loving the fact that they don't have the sex drive that maybe other people expect them to.
Right. And I think the problem lies then with, like, if you're going to a sex therapist, you might offer up that option of like, there are choices. You can go this route and accept your asexuality. I think sometimes a regular psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever who's not necessarily trained specifically in dealing with sexual issues might be more prone to the try having sex, see if that helps.
Yeah.
And maybe not necessarily acknowledging the asexuality side of it.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And I think that goes on now, but it was much more prevalent before the asexual community became a lot more visible.
Yeah. Which is helpful in like, I think every community, like visibility is
Right?
helpful to everyone.
Right?
Yeah.
We should quote you on that.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah. How can I learn about sexuality without experimenting?
Google. Lots of videos out there, both educational and less educational, that explore different sexualities. I mean, Sexplanations and other channels like it will discuss different sexualities that, and even better, I think sometimes are videos from the people who are part of a certain like community talking about their sexuality and their experience with it. And YouTube gets like 300 hours of video uploaded every minute. Like there are plenty of people out there who are just as questioning, just as wondering, like out there making vlogs about it, talking through their experiences. And I mean, if you want to fall down a YouTube like rabbit hole, like you could spend 6 hours just watching people talking about their own sexuality and other people's sexuality online. I think it's really helpful to watch those things, and even the ones you don't agree with, at least watch and take in, because I think it's really easy to cast aside like, well, that's not my experience.
Yeah.
Like, that's not true. No one feels that way. It's like, well, you're listening to someone who says they feel that way.
Yeah.
So it's not true that no one feels that way.
I'm looking at this question, realizing that we answered it again in our most recent Ask Lindsay video. And I think things like fantasy and watching porn came up, which is interesting. Okay. Can you explain asexuality?
Well, we kind of did.
Not experiencing sexual attraction
Yeah.
or a lot of it.
Yeah.
Does anyone else think speculums look like a duck?
I would say so.
What can I do if I'm allergic to latex?
Buy non-latex products.
How do I get started masturbating?
put a finger on it. Whatever you got going on, just lay a finger near it or on it. And you'll be like, oh, that's a reaction. I mean, or push up against something, rub on something. Like, I don't think it has to be like full penetration or to completion.
No, yeah.
Especially early on, like, experiment, see what feels good for you.
I think you just need to take over Sexplanations and become the new host.
Oh, and I didn't tell you this is my whole plan. Next episode, I'm hosting. You're not here.
Oh, that would be so great. Let's talk about that more. What is the how-to on vaginal hygiene?
I don't know that I'm the best person to ask.
What is the difference between an STI and an STD?
I honestly don't know. But I have been told that STI is the preferred term now.
Right.
Can you tell me why, Lindsay?
Yes, I can. I can try. So STI is sexually transmitted infection and STD is sexually transmitted disease. And because not all infections lead to the manifestation of the disease, also we are not able to necessarily cure the disease or we can treat a lot of them, but we're looking at identifying and correcting the infection. Right? So it's a much broader term that's actually speaking to what the problem is.
Which seems good.
Yes. Do I have to do anything differently with a condom if I have a foreskin?
I also am not helpful there.
We'll make a video about it. How can we know we're being safe and doing it right?
What is the it? Sex?
Let's go with that. Doing it.
If you repeat the question, please, then.
How can we know we're being safe and doing it right?
I mean, if both partners are happy.
All partners.
Yes, sorry. If all partners involved are happy, like, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
If you're talking through it and you're like, you good? I'm good.
What about safety?
Safety, I mean, depending on who's involved. Mm-hmm. Condoms help that.
Gloves.
Gloves, dental dams, lots of latex and non-latex devices out there to use. But yeah, I think that's a important conversation.
Yeah, talking.
Of like the safety stuff even aside, like making sure that conversation is there beforehand and knowing whatever, like there's not a doing it right version. Yeah. So I think doing it right is doing it right for the people involved. So that like halfway through someone's not like, oh no, we're doing it wrong. Yeah.
We were supposed to go left.
Yeah.
I would just add getting tested beforehand is always helpful. This says, what do you masturbate to?
Porn.
What should I know about choosing a dildo?
I don't know. I've never had to choose one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I would go with 100% silicone as of right now. We don't know that it's harmful. Also, something that you feel comfortable having inside your body or near your body.
Probably a good one.
Yeah,
if it's comfortable.
If it's going in the anus, it needs to have a wide base or a cord so that it isn't sucked up and irretrievable. If you can get something that's easily cleanable, that's good too.
Is glass okay?
Yes, Pyrex glass is great. I think it's wonderful because you can change the temperature. You could put it in a pot of boiling water, or you could stick it in the fridge for a while.
Okay.
And then you can have some temperature play.
I just assumed that the glass avoids some of those like plasticky chemical type issues that you get from other ones that you might buy in the mall or something.
I'm like, where are we buying toys at the mall?
I don't want to shout out
Yep. Okay.
No negative press. But there are places.
There are places. On that note, let's do a quick break to do our group giggles.
Feel your giggles if you're able. Main squeeze.
Every time you hear a moan during this message from our sponsor, clench the muscles in your groin that stop and start urination. Those are the pubococcygeus muscles, or PCs, and strengthening them, which we're going to do as a group right now, is good for bladder control, orgasm, sexual performance, and childbirth. You ready?
Ready.
AdamandEve.com is an online store for adults to buy toys and gear for their sexual adventures. Dildos, strokers, vibrating cock rings, playful sex games, and cushions to prop your partner up for new sex positions. They're all available at their website, adamandeve.com. When you use promo code SEXPOD at checkout, they'll sweeten the deal with 50% off one eligible item and ship your fun for free if you live in the U.S. or Canada. Yeah.
How long is a Kegel supposed to last?
You could do a quick clench and release.
Yeah.
Or you could do a clench, hold, and release.
Say, because what if someone like started at the first moan and held it to the last moan?
Then they would be really sore the following day in their crotch.
But if they did that every day, they had the strongest crotch.
They would have a pretty strong crotch.
Yeah.
There are very strong crotches out there.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, bodybuilders, they're into muscle.
Someone just had like
building.
a super jacked, like ripped crotch.
Yeah.
Just like super strong crotch, just bodybuilding, like lifting weights with it.
Yeah, they do that. There was, maybe you're going to have to look this up on your favorite Proving Things Wrong website, but there are images of people holding very, very huge weights from their vaginas. So you see there's probably some sort of dildo inside them.
That they're like clasping
And they're
onto,
yeah.
and then it's attached to a heavy weight.
Yep. And then
All right.
there's a cord, and then there's a 20-pound weight, 30-pound, 50-pound, etc. And there was talk of it becoming an Olympic sport.
Like between you and your friends. Like,
No,
there's no
next to
way
these images.
I believe every part of that story until you got to the very last line.
Well, it would be great if it was an Olympic sport. Ready to do more questions?
Sure. Probably don't make it a winter Olympic sport because you probably stick to it. More questions.
More questions. Can you talk about periods?
I mean, I could, but not from the best point of view.
What do you mean? What
I've never had one.
From your point of view, what do you think about periods?
They're a natural part of life that happen to most everyone that has a vagina every month.
Oh, that was wonderful.
All right.
Okay.
I tried.
Yeah. A+. What are the pros and cons of the birth control pill?
See, this is again another weird thing where it's like, as someone who's never had to take a birth control pill, I don't know like how it affects everyone's body on the whole. Mm-hmm. I've known people who have had different effects to birth control things, and it as we were just talking about periods, it greatly affects periods,
Mm-hmm.
and some people just depending on the type of pill like won't have periods, or will have 2 a year, or will have way worse periods than they had before. Mm-hmm. And I think hormonal things are always going to be different for everyone. So I think it's one of those things of if someone wants to take the pill, it's definitely going to be a process of figuring out
How
if
it's in your body.
Yeah, and if it's the right pill for you, because there are other options.
True. I'm going to say that the pro is that it works really well at controlling birth.
Yeah, the title is true. The birth control part works pretty well.
Excellent.
98% or something like that.
Yeah. Where do I go to talk about my asexuality?
Because I think it's a scary thing to reach out with, because there's so many people out there who don't understand the asexual point of view.
Right.
If they are not, it's very easy for people with a average sex drive, I guess, is or any sex drive, to look at people who are asexual and not understand them at all.
Or bully them.
Yeah.
Which is even worse. I'll convert you.
Or even inadvertently bullying them by basically saying that their thing doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's where I fall into a little bit of the trouble with the people who may be questioning if they're asexual or not, getting the advice of just have sex. Mm-hmm. If it's the least appealing thing to them in the world.
Yeah.
And they're being told, well, just try it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you'll like it. They're like, I'm pretty sure my body's telling me not to like that and not want that. It's that thing of the people who feel comfortable coming out and talking about that publicly. Mm-hmm. Chances are they've also sat in a room and thought, hey, who can I talk to about this? And then they decided, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll tweet about it, or maybe I'll make a video about it, or maybe I'll write a book about it. Mm-hmm. And I think those people would be the first people you'd want to reach out to talk to.
And so an asexual mentor.
Yeah, a little bit. And even if they don't
trailblazed.
have the time to respond, maybe they have 6,000 messages sitting in an inbox somewhere, I'm sure they have people you can talk to, or they will be willing to talk when they can, or yeah, I think that the quickest, easiest place to talk about it is with other people who are going through it. Going through it, as I say, is like it makes it sound very negative, but dealing with coming to terms with their asexuality, because I mean there are very happy asexuals out there.
Oh yeah, totally.
And you can be one of them too.
Yay! Well, and I think one thing that speaks to the success of Sexplanations is that this question was asked in maybe our second month, and here we are 4 years later, and I think with a very visible asexual community who is active in the comments and supportive of one another, and then people who don't identify as asexual but are still there supporting them and validating them is so cool. What's the best way to clean out sebum before it turns into smegma?
I don't know.
Water.
Oh yeah, I mean,
sometimes people will use mineral oil.
as a circumcised gentleman, I cannot help you. I am sorry.
Well, we're good. Can you eat it? Can you eat smegma?
That doesn't sound like a good idea. I mean, physically, probably.
Yes.
Like you can put anything in your mouth. But should you is probably the better question. And for that one, I'm going to direct you to the doctor over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a buildup of bacteria mixed with sebum, which is a fluid lubricant released by the body.
But probably
It's
don't
like
put
dead skin
bacteria
cells
in
are
your mouth,
there.
right?
Well, just like, yeah, it's good. It's just like people who eat their fingernails or their scabs or their boogers.
So it's not going to kill you,
No.
but there may be negative ramifications.
Well, it's smell. But yeah.
Yeah, brush
there
your
are people
teeth
who are into
afterwards.
it. Brush your teeth. Can you eat smegma? Brush your teeth. How come when I finger myself, it feels completely different than when my partner fingers me?
They have bigger fingers? I don't know. The angle's different.
I mean, you could think of this as the hand job question, right? Like, why is it preferential for people to get a hand job from someone else than themselves, or
Right.
vice versa?
Because it's like tickling yourself. Like, there's different sensations when people are doing things to you than when you're doing them to yourself.
Yes, true. Can you get pregnant from a hand job or a blow job?
If you've got a certain amount of aim. if you're at the end of the hand job, are you ejaculating towards a vagina? Then yes.
Can you lose your virginity to a speculum?
I mean, I'm gonna say no, but then again, virginity as a concept is also
Yeah, totally.
a flawed concept.
Right.
So, yeah, I'd say don't worry about it if you're going in for your exam.
Yeah, or if you are in possession of a speculum and you're using it in sexual ways, like that is the way that you want to have sex for the first time, then sure. But again, that the whole concept of virginity is something that I struggle with.
Right, the fact that you can give it away or take
Lose it,
someone's
yeah.
or lose it is all like very negative and bad.
Yeah. What is BDSM?
Bondage, dominance, or discipline is the other one, the other D. Submission. Is there another S? Oh, shit. That's not it.
I'm nodding my head. They don't know,
Yeah.
but I'm like cheering
Yeah.
you on here.
Bondage, dominance, submission, sadomasochism,
Yeah.
and masochism.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, yay.
I mean, I only know that mostly because we did a whole bondage dungeon episode, and I had to put all those words on the screen. That's how I learn a lot of my facts, is by putting the definitions on the screen in the Sexplanations videos.
Awesome.
Luckily,
Now
I
you
retained
know.
some of it.
If you want to be sex educated, be the editor for a sex education YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
Don't need no schooling.
What do you think about sapiosexuality? So if you're not familiar with that, sapio is referring to intellect, smarts, intelligence. And
So
it's an
attracted
attraction.
to
Yeah.
intelligence.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know that I've had a conversation with anyone thoroughly enough about it. Like I can understand the concept of like attracted to someone's mind, but I think for me, like personally, that's part of an overall attraction that I have to people, is like attracted to their looks as well as their mind.
Yeah.
So this is probably the extreme example of this is people who are really, really attracted to someone's mind and the way they think in their education, but like looks don't matter as much or at all.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that people try and use the term sapiosexual as another sexual orientation. So where
Right, that's what
you
I'm
have
wondering.
heterosexual, which is attraction to what's different, and you have homosexual, which is attraction to what's the same. Sapiosexual would be attraction to a person's abilities intellectually. So
Regardless of sex, gender,
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Mind first.
yes.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. I can see it too. We made a sweatshirt that had the prefixes, and I included sapiosexual on there because that for me is a sexual orientation that I really identify with. Like if we're playing Trivial Pursuit and you are answering every question, it's so on. Like I want to have sex with you. But
Did people get upset?
They did because they felt that it was really ableist.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we can talk about that a bit more, just of like the concept of being inclusive and then to some people being too inclusive.
Yeah.
And that being a negative because you're including someone that they don't think should be included in a certain group of people.
Oh, we could talk about that for days.
I mean, we don't have that long. But I want to touch on it because I know that is something that I am not entirely familiar with until I am like run into the brick wall of it, of like, you did this wrong. Like something with like the hoodie, of putting that on a hoodie. If you showed me that list of the 50 things or whatever that are on that hoodie, that is not one that would have jumped out at me and been like, are you sure you want to put this on there?
Right.
And then I know we did a video recently where we included kink in as like the LGBT,
Yeah.
and people got really upset by that.
Yeah, they did.
And I don't know if that is from a similar mindset of people who don't think those things should be included in that same list. But I find it really interesting that I get both sides of the argument. And so I don't
Totally.
necessarily have a defined thing, but I wonder like what leads you to decide to include those things on the list?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a degree of pushing people to think about it, like why some things are there and some things aren't. And so with the LGBT initialism, adding kink was my way of saying this list is about sexual and gender minorities. And the kink community is one of those. And the argument against it is, hey, the kink community has its own community, right? Like, let us be queer in other ways, but, you know, there needs to be separate spaces. And that is a really valid argument that I love. What I didn't like was when people would say, you know, that the kink community is more taboo and they're questionable or
When they're like putting it down,
disgusting.
right?
Yeah.
When they're judging the community.
Yeah, and they're saying they shouldn't be a part of us. And I
Yeah.
go through the
That one
initials.
I don't.
And I'm like,
Yeah, that one I can't agree with. That side I don't understand as much. But the side of like they're not. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me because I felt the same thing when the rainbow flag, when the people were talking about adding the black and brown stripe. To
oh,
the rainbow
what was
flag.
this? I don't know this.
This is probably not the time for the conversation because I'm not going to be able to explain it properly enough to you right now. But yeah, I probably shouldn't even get into it just because I know I'm going to explain it incorrectly. But there are groups of people out there who currently want to add a black and brown stripe for race representation on the rainbow pride flag. And so you have many people on both sides of that issue debating it. And as someone who is not part of either community, it's very hard for me to like look at that and go, oh, you're right. Oh, no, I think you're right.
Wow.
Because listening to them, they both, like, from what I see, like, have very strong, passionate beliefs about their side and why this thing should not be or should be included. And I feel the same way when I look at comments about, like, the kink being included on the LGBT initialism or the sapio being included on the hoodie. And it's really interesting to just take that all in. But luckily, I am not in a position where people ask me to declare what side I believe is correct.
You don't have 6,000 messages in your
Nope.
inbox saying, should brown and black be added to the flag?
Nope.
Well, I think that's something I'll have to think about. I don't know that I'm smart enough to write an episode about that conversation, but I'll try.
Yeah. I think that's one of those things where sometimes I see people and I have this feeling too, where you get the urge to say something about something that's in the public eye because we all have Twitter, we all have YouTube, we all have Facebook, we all have an outlet now where we can post something and people will hear it.
Right.
And that's empowering in both good and bad ways. And I think a lot of times for me, I see something like that and I want to post something about it, not necessarily like declarative of like, this is the way everything should be,
Right.
but more in the like, this is the way I'm currently feeling about it. But then I think 5 steps beyond that of like, oh, 1, does anyone need to care about, like, does my opinion matter at all on this? No. 2, should I just go and look for someone whose opinion I feel like does matter more, like someone that's in one of these communities that's being affected by the alteration of the flag, and retweet their thoughts,
Right.
or just read their thoughts. You don't need to post a thing ever. Like, no one's holding your hand to a Twitter button and saying, post this now. Like, I've talked to Lindsay about this before. Like, my favorite thing to always keep in the back of my mind whenever I'm on social media is from a Craig Ferguson stand-up special. And it's like, number 1, does this need to be said? Number 2, does this need to be said right now? And number 3, does this need to be said right now by me?
That's
and
so
like
great.
those rules, I think everyone should keep in their mind when they're doing social media.
Yeah.
Because the
I
answer is
agree.
usually no.
Well, it's also the difference between being smart and being wise. Being smart is knowing what to say, and being wise is knowing whether or not to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. A few more questions, and then we'll close with some Sextra Credit. What are your thoughts on shaving pubic hair?
Do it if you want to. Don't do it if you don't want to.
How do you feel about sex for recreation?
As opposed to sex for business?
Procreation?
Oh. I was like, business or pleasure, sir? Pro, as I do not have children.
Yeah. How do you feel about the legality of prostitution?
Another area where I am not someone it directly affects, so I don't necessarily have a super strong opinion, but I lean much more towards the arguments of people saying that it should be legal and safe and taxed and all this stuff. Like, that seems like a good idea to
Right?
me.
Anything you want to ask me?
Anything I've had questions about throughout this process, I feel like I've come back at you with.
Yeah. And we talk about sex all the time.
Yeah, it's our job. Like, my Google history is just, oh man. I'm glad we don't have like a regular HR department looking over me, because they would just, yeah. Any other job that wasn't my job, if I had the Google search history I have, I'd be fired.
What do you think is the most interesting thing you have on your Google search history?
Ooh, I don't even know at this point. I mean, 2 years of working on Sexplanations and having to find like images and definitions, and mostly the images.
Can I make a guess?
Sure.
So we did an episode about how to hold a vibrator without using your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one involving a drone. But for us to have our own drone and do our own video
Yeah.
footage of it was really just troublesome.
Yeah.
And so we were given permission to borrow clips from a video. And I would imagine if somebody came across that YouTube video on your search history
Dildo
of like
drone.
the drone coming down on this
Yeah.
woman with the dildo, that they would be
I
pretty
don't think
astounded.
that's the worst.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because I think like someone would watch that and assume it's more of a jokey thing, or definitely a Sexplanations thing. I think it's when I have to like, what happens the majority of the time is I don't think, I'm like in Sexplanations brain when I'm editing.
I love that there's a sex
And so,
brain.
yeah, I'm like looking, I need to like make a graphic for something or an illustration, and I'm like, oh, okay, this, like, I don't know. I can't think of it, like, off the top of my head, I can't think of one sexual term, apparently. But, like, I have to just find a visual representation of that so I can make our own version or find a stock photo or something. And I'll just go over to Google image search and just type it in and hit enter, like nothing bad can happen to me. And, of course, I'm wrong every time. And it's, like, especially, like, yeah, there's so many examples. Just, like, if you scroll back through the Sexplanations video history, Like, just look at the titles and think about putting that into your Google image search.
Yep.
And that's what I do on a weekly basis.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun.
Sorry if that computer ever gets like passed on to someone else in the company, because they're going to have some weird suggestions on their Google search.
Oh my goodness. All right, so let's give the audience some Sextra credit. I came up with something, but maybe you have another idea for them. What we've done since the first episode of the podcast is suggest that they get a journal, and then each week I've given them assignments that they can do when they're not listening or watching the show. And this week, my recommendation is that in your Sexplanations podcast notebook, make a list of the sex questions you have. Try to think of 10 things you're curious about. Or as an alternative homework assignment, go back through the episode that you just listened to and answer the questions I asked Matthew in your own words. I'll actually put the questions in the description of the episode so you can access them easily there too.
I think a good thing on top of that too is anything that you write down that surprises you, because that might happen. Like you're writing down 20 questions that you think of off the top of your head, and you might write one down and you're like, oh, I didn't even realize I really wanted to know that. Like take the time and go find the answer to that question. And
that's why I like you so much, Matthew.
I think also ask your friend that question. Like just a friend that you don't necessarily talk to about sex necessarily. If they're comfortable and you feel comfortable and you think it's a safe place, like try to ask not a super graphic question, just off the top. Like it's like meeting for lunch and you're just like, so what? You think you can get pregnant from a hand job? Like maybe don't lead with that one. But maybe start off the conversation with something about asexuality or something like that, and see if you can start a new sort of friendship relationship. Because I think it's always interesting when you talk to someone that you've talked to for years suddenly about a topic that you've never talked to them about. And you're like, oh, we're both comfortable discussing sex. Who knew?
Oh, then you could watch Sexplanations together.
Yeah. Well, watch them separately so we get 2 views.
Oh, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's been really special working with you as a partner in creating the show. I'm really proud of what we make, and that's because of how well you cut it together and add flair and direct me to be more cool than I am in real life. This show is made possible with the generous donations from listeners like you at patreon.com/Sexplanations podcast, our sponsorship from adamandeve.com, and the production help of Complexly Cinema Studios and Count Boogie. As I like to say each week, Ancora Imparo, I'm still learning.